Hello everyone, I just wanted to give a quick update of what I've built on my gaming project. I know I've been doing a lot of things over these past few months and I wanted to just give it, folks who do want to follow a quick update. So I actually forked the engine that I've been working on to kind of do a refactor of certain elements of the game, mainly segregating and decoupling client input from engine update and state management from different aspects of the actual game management, state management such as UI, menu navigation, character like state navigation. Because as you start to evolve the features in the game, you want to be able to change them locally in one part of the code base without it affecting the actual engine's 24/7 gameplay. So what I've done was I started kind of implementing a 2D brawler fighter engine that has actually a lot of commonality with my previous game project that I'm still working on. Just kind of put it on the table. So I finished this one, the Advance Wars turn-based battle game, and I'll spare you the history. Let's just go into what I did this recent iteration over the past couple hours. So I needed to decide how I would go about and create a minimal resource taking a take on updating a large map and level on a local scale. If that what that make what I'm trying to say is you got your viewport and you got all of these enemies in the level, but you're not going to go through and update every single object in the game. So you want a way to only trigger updates for elements that are relevant to the actual gameplay, elements that are within your viewport. And what I went ahead and did was I created a management system that tracks basically the player's position and the viewport's position to activate a not chronologically but a positionally sorted vector of enemies, positionally sorted in the x-axis. That is to say, from 0 to size of the vector indexes of enemies in the game, you will have 0 on the left for their x position, and then maximum x position on the max size index of the vector. Some of you looking without a computer science program listening will probably ask yourself a lot of questions. I'm sorry, you're not my intended audience. This is more for the game developers looking at how I built this engine. Now I have 4 units here. Well, one of them's hiding on the other side of the viewport, but the actual game wasn't spawned with any of those units. What happened was when I started the game, I was at terrain ID 0. That is to say, terrain index 0 of the terrain's vector. And every game loop I go through and I iterate up that sorted array or vector of enemies and identify its terrain ID because they're mapped to terrain IDs. And if the terrain ID matches the current ID I'm on, I just activate the foot soldier. And when I go through and update all enemies, I only update the active foot soldiers, not the entire vector of foot soldiers, saving computation time and creating a very close, uh, quick game loop. And what that will allow me to do is as I go out and build more backgrounds, right now I just have a proof of concept where I have 2 terrains. Um, I can go about and start scripting triggered events. Events that are triggered not just my character's X, but also events triggered by other, I guess you could say, triggers. X position, all enemies killed, and really whatever my creativity lends me to create. And right now, if I get my act together as far as my time management is concerned, I have no reason why I couldn't provide a vertical slice for an actual playable demo. Right now, I can't attack those guys, but the pieces are there to attack them. I can launch an attack, but right now it's all only visual. But I've created a hitbox system that spawns hitboxes, and a hitbox detection system where you take one hitbox and you pass it another hitbox, and it will actually do the algebra. Not even algebra, just do a really quick comparison of points and determine whether or not there's an intersection. And that sounds like an expensive operation, but it's actually really cheap when you think about how you represent a rectangle. People think of a rectangle. You got in your XNA framework, it's upper left corner, X and Y coordinate, and then a length and height. I don't even use length and height. I just have a top left X and Y coordinate and a bottom right X and Y coordinate. From that, I can extrapolate all information I need from the rectangle. And the check for intersection, well, if you know how to infer that from that information, congratulations. You should investigate a career in computer science if you haven't already. Um, but really, I'm trying to keep it such that number crunching is minimal and that the amount of memory needed is minimal. And that's all being derived from decoupling as much as I can from the engine, the characters, the interactions, doing a lot of minimization. When I implemented my um, game engine in C Sharp, there was still a lot of decoupling I didn't do and invest in, and I paid for it. On an i7 with 12 gigabytes of DDR3 RAM, my game was slow, and it was a 2D side-scrolling game because I had too many assets in play. All assets in play were being updated, and once I got the map to a certain level, I couldn't do that. Old NES games actually kind of suffer from that, wherein you can only have so many sprites drawn at the same time. There's a reason why you can only have so many characters on the Super Nintendo screen in a game like Final Fight or Turtles Through Time. It's because the hardware couldn't handle that amount of computations, the updating and the detection. But in today's day and world, you don't have to worry about that as much, but it's still important to do that because it lends towards a rapid network response if you're going to do multiplayer over the net. My goal is to have all updates for a game transmitted in one datagram, and one datagram I want to say is 4K, something of that nature. It was good enough for Quake World, and it should be good enough for me. But that's just me talking about what I've been up to, what I've built, and ideally as I go down this development path, um, I'll be able to demonstrate more advanced features. But right now, I'm just focusing on making a playable local client um, with one person, and then demonstrate a vertical slice for uh, my my vision of my game. I'm not announcing any details as to what that game will look like, how fun it will be, things of that nature. It will use some of the features my previous engine has, such as a QWERTY League of Legends type MOBA style cooldown attack scheme, where you have a Q for one attack, W, E, R, and mana generation. So it wouldn't be just a simple A for hit and S for special hit, jump and kick. I think people expect more out of their games, and quite frankly, I expect more out of my game. So stay tuned, and hopefully you get something playable soon.